the judicial inquiry into the allegations of sexual misconduct against Eastern Cape Judge President Selby Mbenenge, heard that the initial complaint was misplaced by the Chief Justice Raymond Zondo. This revelation ties into earlier evidence that implicates the former Chief Justice in the handling of the probe. Kutlwano Moretlwe from the Office of the Chief Justice testifying that she helped the Eastern Cape Court Secretary Andiswa Mengo compile the initial complaint against Mbenenge, and that Mengo was emotional as she recounted the allegations. Joining me now for a wrap of what took place at that particular hearing today, Qaanitah Hunter is with me in studio. Qaanitah, good evening to you once again. Yet another day of the just jaw-dropping moments when we heard the interpretations that were placed on the emojis that were used as some form of communication between the two. Let's start there. What did that, or how did that end today? Because the understanding is that the expert who was there has completed her testimony.
Yeah, so Dr. Zakira Docrat has now completed her testimony to this inquiry, and she made several assertions. The first of which is that you cannot interpret some of the emojis sent that was sent by Judge Mbenenge to Andiswa Mengo in its standard way, and that those emojis did have sexual connotations. She was referring, and with warning I say this, to eggplant emoji, a banana emoji and a peach emoji. And this is important because this is at the center of disputed WhatsApps that seem to be at the basis of the case of sexual harassment against the judge. So how these WhatsApps and these emojis are interpreted is critical to that panel, which is led by Judge Bernard Ngwepe, who have to ascertain whether Judge Selby Mbenenge, who we know is a senior judge, he's a judge president in the Eastern Cape, whether he is guilty of this sexual misconduct. And if he is, it opens the way for impeachment against him. And so taking away the triviality of emoticons and emojis out of the way, this is a very serious inquiry, and the assertions made at this inquiry is absolutely critical. The one point, Goli, is that was her responses, Mengo's responses, one of a willing participant as Mbenenge legal team testified to this inquiry, or was it one of being shy and embarrassed at the sexual nature of the conversations? According to the witness, Dr. Docrat, she says that every time Mengo sent an emoji of a monkey covering his eyes, that showed shyness and awkwardness or embarrassment. Right. However, Mbenenge's legal team says they interpreted it as her being flirtatious.
Let me pick up on that very point you make, because at some point a question is asked of Dr. Docrat as to whether Mengo, did she at any point respond with emojis that have now been established to be emojis of a sexual nature to the person she has complained against? And what was the response to that very question?
So Dr. Docrat obviously looked at 800 message exchanges between the two, and she found that there were no emojis used by Ms. Mengo, such as the peach emoji or the eggplant emoji, that contain sexual connotations. But what is in dispute now is Mengo's response, where she responded with laughing on the rolling on the floor, laughing emojis, and the emoji of the see no evil, the monkey covering his eye. So the assertion is, was she a willing participant, that it was sexual? Quote to quote Advocate Griffiths Madansela, that it was naughty talk, and or was she awkward that a superior in her workplace was sexually harassing her? And so that is the bone of contention, and the interpretation of that is important. Now the question is, does the interpretation of an expert trump the intention of the person who sent these emojis? And that was a big part of today's proceedings, as to if the judge said, I intended X with such an emoji, but the expert says Y, what happens in that regard? And so it's going to be important, because from the assertion of the respondent, which is Judge Mbenenge, his legal team, that they believe that the standard response, or the standard interpretation rather, of emojis should be applied, whereas the expert said no, the context matters, and so you cannot interpret fruit as fruit. And so they will then call their own witness to testify to the nature of the testimony, and there will be another witness testifying on emojis next week.
Interesting indeed. I know that you have a soundbite to throw to, but let me throw this question as you think about that particular soundbite. Former Chief Justice, his name has come up here. In what context is his name coming up? Because as we said in the introduction, this was now the initial stages of the drafting of the complaint.
So the timelines are very important, Goli, because the allegations are between 2021 and 2022. The case was opened in December, or filed in the Office of the Chief Justice in December 2022. And so the person who was tasked with handling the complaint testified today about the process that was followed. So why is this important? Because there was an initial complaint that was misplaced by the then Chief Justice, and then this person, Ms. Mengo, had to then file an affidavit. And so at the bone of contention is, why did she have to go back and file another complaint? What happened to the initial complaint? And so this is what the inquiry and the evidence leaders were putting forward to say what actually happened during that period. And so the official that testified, and she will continue tomorrow, saying that she had handed over the physical copy of the initial complaint to the Chief Justice. He had misplaced it, and he had asked her to communicate to Ms. Mengo to draft in an affidavit form the complaint. So was this some sort of irregular process, or was this just a matter of human error where the Chief Justice had misplaced the initial complaint and said that it must be revised? And so that's going to be continue tomorrow, and is obviously a central part of the respondent's defense.
Qaanitah Hunter, thank you very much indeed.